Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Devin from Bristol. Craig. Kerry. Hello. Dane, how you doing? Gavin, hello. John from Gemini, hello. Hello, Michael, Liam, Jim. Got a few more that are coming in. Hello, Pete. Stuart, hello. Got a few more drifting in. We'll just give it a minute and then we'll start. Hi, Andy and Adam. Right, I think we've got a few still drifting into the webinar, but I think we'll make a start. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us on this webinar on the IIR, which is the Insurance Industry Requirements for ADAS. I'd like to thank Jerry for attending today from the MBRA from a technical perspective. And I'd like to thank Shelley Cheshire for doing all the magic behind the scenes. So there will be Q&A at the end. So if you've got questions, put the questions through as we go along. I think we've already got one question. And that will be answered, Mike, through the presentation. So we will progress. So why the webinar for the IIR, I guess you're asking? Well, the insurers have come up with this requirement so that it creates a safe pair of hands for both them and the customer and for the repairer. So as we go through this presentation, we'll look at A, why is it required? B, who put the IIR together? C, how will you conform to the IIR? And how will the MBRA help you through this process? So without further ado, we will move forward. And the overview, what are advanced driver assistance systems? So if you joined us in our webinar back in December, we went through all the types of ADAS that is available to be fitted onto a vehicle and specifically how they work. And you'll be pleased to know we have a video in today's presentation and it will be 6 minutes long. So it's a very good video on Audi, BMW and Mercedes, how the ADAS features, how the ADAS interacts with the architecture around the vehicle. And for 6 minutes, you can absorb that information or you can go off and make a cup of tea or coffee, entirely up to you. So I think if we move past this page, unless there's anything you want to say, Jerry, on this page?
No.
Oh, okie dokie. So we've got polls today. We've got 4 polls just to gather information in so that we know what the uptake is of IIR. So the first poll is, how many people do you have that are ADAS competent within your business? So if you could select one of the 5 answers, and we'll have a look at those as they're being created. Give it a minute. And do we have any answers, Shelley? There you go. So 33% of the attendees today zero competent people on ADAS. So there's a good mix there. But as we go through the presentation today, you'll understand why having competent ADAS technicians, VDAs in your business is so vital. So thank you very much for answering that first poll, and we'll move on. So overview, what are the UK insurance industry requirements? And for the safe repair of ADAS equipped vehicles, and why? So I think, Jerry, on this slide, we've got a raft of insurers that have signed up to the IIR and requested its creation through Thatcham.
Yes.
Now, what's your view on why it's required?
Well, previously, the insurance companies have been unsure of what exactly they're paying for, if indeed they are paying for ADAS calibrations, etc. There was no consistency. There was wide variation in what each repairer was saying was required, and they were losing a little bit of confidence in what was actually happening. So they wanted to create a situation where people would hopefully follow the same procedure and come up with similar answers, and then they could have greater trust in what they require to have the ADAS reinstated.
Thank you. So you've got some big insurers here that want to know that the repairers are being compliant when they're repairing a vehicle and it's equipped with ADAS. Is the ADAS being calibrated if needed? And is it being calibrated to the requirements of the vehicle manufacturer? Those were the two grey shaded areas which the insurers wanted answers for. And I can remember being at a conference probably 2 years ago, a big insurer, and the claims director got up and he said the one thing that keeps them awake at night is ADAS at the moment. And the fact that, you've got 2 tons of metal, traveling down the road, and this autonomous type system, the ADAS, should brake if you're not capable to avoid an accident. And if it's not calibrated correctly, or if it's not repaired correctly, that could end up with a huge liability. So, the MBRA are fully behind the IIR. In principle, it's the right thing to do, and it will create a safer repair. So overview. So, Jerry, when does this come into effect?
It's slated to come into effect on after the 31st of March 2021. However, due to the pandemic, there has been a great difficulty in getting training courses to get your staff trained to ADAS competence. We've been talking to the insurers and the BSI, looking at the possibility of getting this date put back to perhaps the end of May or even June to give people time.
Yeah. So I've written to Thatcham and asked them if we can postpone this. I'm lobbying to see whether it can be postponed. I mean, we've got several repairers that have had their training postponed, not once, twice, but 3 times, because training facilities, either they've been struck down with the COVID and they've needed their staff to isolate, or they've been shut down as a result of lockdown. And it's had the consequences has had an impact on the repair environment. And the earliest I think it should go is the 31st of May, and it could even be pushed back further on from there. So we'll have to watch that space and see where it goes. So why are the IIR needed? We've gone through that, reference the ADAS, the situation on the vehicle, but how does BS 10125 come into play here then, Jerry?
Well, BS 10125 is looking for competence in all areas of the business, and ADAS is yet another area of specialist competence, very similar to welding and in air conditioning, 4-wheel alignment. You need competence in all of these areas, and this is just another area that you need competence in. So BS 10125 does apply. But it also is a requirement for people who are not BS 10125 as well.
Yeah, and I think it'd be prudent to mention that some of the BSI audits that have gone on, this year have created failures for not being compliant with ADAS.
That's right.
And, you know, the MBRA are aware of some of the dissatisfaction from our members in that they've been failed. But however, BSI are open to challenges, and if you feel that it's an unfair failure, then please contact BSI directly and they will review. And if you don't get any luck there, then come back to the MBRA and we will assist.
Okay.
Anything else you want to mention on that page, Jerry?
No, we're okay there.
Okay, so overview. Who made the advice and guidance? So on the right, you can see some calibration equipment manufacturers that have been involved heavily, some glass replacement companies, some repairers, and the MBRA, and all importantly, the IMI, Institute for Motor Industry. It's pinnacle that we get this right, and especially when you look at the scale of glass replacement companies and the impact of ADAS has on them, and the fact that, you know, if you have your glass replaced, you absolutely need that ADAS to be working. You don't really want to be driving your vehicle around for a couple of weeks until they can get the calibration done. So the IIR is a safe pair of hands for the insurer and for the customer, most importantly. So why was the advice created? Well, you could purchase a calibration piece of equipment and calibrate a vehicle without having any competency training, and then giving the car back to the customer and not knowing whether it's calibrated correctly, or if you've got a certificate to say it is calibrated correctly, have you actually researched the vehicle manufacturer's methods to see what they stipulate? So this is a very belts and braces way of going forward to safeguard both the insurer, the repairer, and the customer. Is that how you see it, Jerry? Or
yes, that's correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, and is it just the calibration that this affects? I mean, if you've got a competent person, is it just the person doing the calibration, or who else might it affect in the repair?
Well, you've got to have a process in place, which we'll talk about later. You've got to have competence, and you've got to be consistent, and you've got to identify that the vehicle has ADAS fitted. It's no good making a guess. You've got to know.
Okay, move on to the next. So when does the IIR apply? We've touched on this, but I'll hand over to you, Jerry, because you've got the expertise here. When we talk about the ADAS sensors, parts likely to affect the operation, the vehicle geometry. And this isn't when it's going through the repair process. This is when you first touch the vehicle. You need to identify some of these things. So can you enlighten us on that, Jerry?
Yes, well, this is why it's important to have an ADAS competent person on the premises, irrespective of whether you carry it out yourself or you subcontract. You must identify what ADAS is on the vehicle before you do your estimate, because that will guide you with your final estimate and your repair method. Sensors can be behind bumpers, behind grills, behind badges. Some of the vehicles have a camera and radar in the windscreen. You've got side-mounted cameras, you've got 360-degree cameras. You've got to know what's on that vehicle before you can make a sensible decision about how you proceed.
Yeah.
And you cannot solely rely on your subcontractor to identify what is on the vehicle. You must have the knowledge.
So the first person that's going to touch the vehicle is probably the VDA, right?
Absolutely.
So when you estimate the vehicle, you're probably going to have to do a scan of the vehicle at that point, not when it comes in for repair,
well,
but when you do the estimate.
This is an interesting point. We've been experiencing situations where people have been doing 2 scans of the vehicle. They've been using a diagnostic tool to pick up fault codes, and then they've been getting another scan from an ADAS diagnostic, and then you've got 2 charges. Well, there should only be a need for 1 charge. If you're using a good diagnostic tool, it should be able to read the ADAS sensors all in one.
Yeah, and if you're not, if you're an MBRA member and you're not sure, then ask us the question. We've got the expertise to be able to help you,
Yes.
and we've got suppliers that can help as well. So, okay, so if the vehicle's coming in and it's a walk-in wounded, you scan it, you find out whether there's any ADAS on the vehicle, and you find out whether that ADAS is functioning.
That's right.
And so gone are the days where you could look at the windscreen and say, right, I think there's a camera up there, it's got ADAS, because some of the manufacturers are placing windscreens in with the apertures for cameras or LiDARs, but not necessarily actually fitting the hardware to the vehicle to make that compliant. Is that right?
That is right. In the earlier days, they specified one windscreen that included the aperture for the cameras, but they didn't always fit the ADAS. It depended on the spec of the vehicle.
So your Bible is going to be doing that scan and finding out what ADAS is on the vehicle from a hardware perspective, and then B, what functionality is on the vehicle to see if that piece of equipment is dormant or whether it's live.
Clearly, new vehicles now, they all have some form of ADAS on, so that is not as great a problem.
No, okay. We will move on. So we've got a second poll for you. What do you consider a competently trained person to look like? ADAS equipment provider comes in with the equipment, gives you training, but gives you no accreditation. Or a vehicle manufacturer trained facility, or an IMI accredited AOM 230, or alternatively, a GQA 603, 6850. You could answer those as we go through, that'd be great. And then we'll have a look at the results in a minute. Here come the answers. So that's a good response.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you all for putting the effort into that. So yeah, absolutely. There's 13% that potentially think that the training provided by the vehicle manufacturer will suffice. And via manufacturer training, that is also good. So, okay, we'll move on from that one. So we've got a short video, 6 minutes long. Enjoy, and thank you to Globe Online Engineering for sharing this with us.
At Audi, we are always pushing the limit of what's possible in drive technology to help reduce the stress of the road. The all-new A4 offers numerous driver assistance systems that meet those goals. Presense Basic comes standard on the A4. If an emergency maneuver is detected, the system will begin closing the sunroof and side windows, engage safety belt pretensioners, and prepare the brake system in order to help minimize the effect of a collision. Presense Rear adds similar capabilities when rear sensors detect a possible collision. Also standard on the all-new Audi A4, Presense City uses the front-facing camera to detect vehicles and pedestrians at speeds up to 52 miles per hour. It helps warn the driver of an imminent collision, and if needed, can initiate emergency braking. The system can reduce speed by 25 miles per hour, potentially avoiding collisions in situations occurring below that speed. Available Active Lane Assist uses the front-facing camera to observe lane markings on the road. If it determines the vehicle is approaching the edge of a lane without signaling, the system provides gentle vibration warnings or active steering guidance. Another system intended to help avoid a collision is in fact called Collision Avoidance Assist. In an evasive maneuver, the system detects the obstacle and the lanes of the road. It then provides gentle steering guidance to help avoid overcorrection and stay in lane. High Beam Assist automatically turns the high beams on and off as oncoming traffic is detected, while traffic sign recognition scans for various traffic signs on the road and displays them in the instrument cluster and head-up display. Other systems deal with situations involving oncoming traffic, like the available Turn Assist. Using the front sensors and camera, the A4 looks for oncoming traffic when stopped for a signaled left turn. If the driver begins to make the turn and sensors determine traffic will not stop in time, the A4 can stop itself from entering the traffic's predicted path. Rear cross-traffic assist uses radar sensors to detect oncoming traffic while reversing out of a parking spot. Indicator arrows in the MMI display can alert the driver, and then a warning tone and brake jolt can be applied, helping prompt the driver to stop. Available vehicle exit assist can help prevent collisions when exiting the A4. Rear radar sensors scan for oncoming traffic, and if detected while the door is open, the system warns the driver or passenger by flashing the LED strip inside the door trim. New to the A4 is Traffic Jam Assist, which combines automatic acceleration, stop and go, and for the first time, steering guidance. Using all forward-facing sensors and camera, in congestion under 40 miles per hour, Traffic Jam Assist takes the stress off the driver with gentle steering guidance for a more comfortable experience. These driver assistance systems are just some of the ways the all-new A4 redefines the limit in what technology means in this class.
The all-new BMW 5 Series comes along with the latest driving assistance systems. One of it is the Steering and Lane Control Assistant, which presents a milestone towards automated driving. The system takes the strain off the driver, especially on highways, and increases comfort and safety. With the Crossroads Warning, your all-new BMW 5 Series warns you in case of potential collisions with crossing traffic. It preconditions your braking system and supports you in case of an emergency braking. These were just two of many driving assistance systems in the all-new BMW 5 Series.
Active Brake Assist as part of the driving assistance package has additional benefits. The speed thresholds are considerably higher than those of the standard system thanks to the fusion of radar and camera data. When the system detects the danger of a collision with a vehicle ahead, it first reacts with a visual and acoustic warning. If the driver reacts to the situation and operates the brake pedal, Active Brake Assist applies the most effective brake pressure, even if the pedal pressure is too weak, right up to full emergency braking. If there is no driver reaction, the system can initiate autonomous braking up to 250 km per hour. Up to 100 km per hour, Active Brake Assist, as part of the driving assistance package, also reacts to stationary vehicles and at up to 70 km per hour also to pedestrians in the danger area ahead of the vehicle, and can therefore prevent accidents at up to approximately 70 km per hour. In the same way, the cross-traffic function provides protection against a collision with crossing traffic at up to approximately 70 km per hour. For example, in situations where a cyclist or vehicle has ignored the right-of-way and crosses the vehicle's path, an accident can be prevented up to approximately 60 km per hour. If the system detects the end of a traffic tailback with no possibility of evasion, it can respond at an early stage up to 130 km per hour to lessen the effects of the accident greatly. Even at speeds up to 100 km per hour, an impending collision can be avoided by autonomous braking. The traffic following behind is warned by activation of the adaptive brake lights while braking and by the hazard warning flashes when stationary.
Okay, so back on with the presentation. Hopefully that was educational, or at least gives you an awareness of all the types of ADAS capability on the vehicles. I think for me, when I seen that, I thought, crikey, this is good. It's very visual, and it gives me a real sense that that technology is on vehicles that are coming into the workshops now. And that's not the latest video. That video was produced back in 2017. So if you think about it, those vehicles that were highlighted on the video have been coming through the workshops for the last 2 to 3 years. So, scope for the IIR. But before we do that, I'd just like to thank a couple of people for helping the MBRA on this journey. So Reese Walker from Gemini Apprentices, we did a profile in December on an apprentice's appetite for ADAS. And, you know, the apprentices are our future. There's no doubt about it. Moving through the next 5 to 10 years, apprentices need to come on board into this industry. But I'd just like to thank Reese for his time on that profile. I thought it was very good. I'd also like to thank Dane Highland from Blackwell Accident Repair Centre. We did a profile on him as well and his repair. And it's credit to Dane because he uses a lot of these videos as training materials. He just gets it off YouTube, and I would, you know, urge anyone to do exactly the same. It's valuable stuff that you can find out there. The webinar presentation will be up for reviewing after this. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Michael Reed from Alan Reed Limited for his help on, you know, some of the work undertaken. So thank you all. So scope for the IIR. What does the IIR say? A repair shall in all cases. Jerry, would you like to take us through this one?
Right. Oh, well, first of all, you must identify the presence or not of ADAS systems on the vehicle, and you must record that. And that will then guide the rest of your actions. Where ADAS is present, ensure that the repair procedures are clearly identified and realignment and calibration requirements are noted. Complete all the relevant inspection, realignment and calibration activities as detailed in the repair procedures. Inspection, calibration and realignment must all be carried out by a competent person. Ensure the calibration results confirm that the sensors are functioning and that it is repaired to the manufacturer's specification. And produce verifiable and auditable records. And a copy must be made available for the asset owner or the insurance company. In other words, this is already saying you must have a consistent process in place when you're trying to conduct repairs under IIR.
I think what this pulls out for me, Jerry, is like, you know, it's not when the vehicle comes on site ready for repair. It's the VDA that needs to establish
Yes.
the ADAS on the vehicle. Is the ADAS working on the vehicle? Then he goes away and says, look, there's no ADAS on the vehicle. It can go through the normal repair route, or it has ADAS and it goes down lane 2. And we have to then look and research the vehicle manufacturer's methods, and then all this kicks into place. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And it also means that irrespective of whether you do your ADAS yourself or you subcontract it, you still need a competent person on the premises to assess the vehicle during the estimating process.
Yeah, and that's crucial in my eyes.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on that one, Jerry?
No, that's that one.
So this slide here is a very important slide. There's bits we've already gone through, but the standout to me that goes through this presentation is you need to have someone that is competently trained in ADAS to be able to be compliant with IIR. Now, there's a couple of questions that have come through. So, Jerry, can you just explain to me what a competent person is?
Well, a competent person under the IMI AOM 230 or the GQA Level 3 award is a person who has an overall understanding of ADAS and ADAS systems and how to identify them and what is meant by calibration, what wouldn't need calibration and what doesn't need calibration. And that is what a competent person is. And when they go undergo this training, which is very comprehensive, they get the knowledge and then they also get the competence, and they probably complete the training by actually doing a calibration.
So it's not just the training, it's an assessed outcome, which is the pinnacle piece here to create that competent person. Am I right?
That's right. They've got to have that overall knowledge
Okay. And the other question was, when we did the webinar back in December, at that point, only the AOM 230 seemed to be available for that competency-based training and assessed outcome.
Yes.
But since then, there's another GQA. Do you want to give us a little bit of information about that, Jerry?
Yes, well, GQA qualifications, two of their centres developed their GQA version of ADAS accreditation and competence, and this has been passed for delivery under the code of 603/6850, and we hope that this will be available from the first week in February.
Okay.
We will be giving a list of the two organisations that deliver the GQA. They are Automotive Training Solutions and Auto Assess Limited.
And Automotive Training Solutions, they're a member of the MBRA, yeah?
That's right, they are.
And, you know, we will put out a comprehensive list of training facilities that will give that competent training for ADAS, and it'd be included into the presentation for, you know, this recording, and will be released after the webinar.
Absolutely.
Right. So poll 3 then. Have you been able to access the competency training? So this is a temperature check, and there's a couple of questions come through reference, you know, are we confident that the IIR that's going to be launched in the 31st of March will be delayed? And this will help us. So through the MBRA, we've heard from repairers that have had their training postponed, and this is creating an issue. And I think in principle, the insurance companies will delay because of the chronic situation that we're in. But please answer the questions. Have you been able to access the competency training? Yes, you have, and you've got competent people there. No, you haven't tried. Or yes, but you've been postponed by the result of COVID-19 restrictions. So while you're answering this, we have been lobbying some of the insurers and Thatcher to say, look, you know, it's common sense that this needs to be postponed, because you're never going to get the amount of repairers through the training in time for the 31st of March. If you want to launch this live, and it's not just the repairers that need to go through this training, it's going to be insurance engineers as well, because they need to be competency tested. So yes, you've got it, 27%. No, you haven't tried, 38%. And yes, you've had knockback because of the COVID-19, 36%, which in itself tells us that it probably needs to be delayed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think it's going to be long. It's probably going to be over the next week or so that we get an answer to say when the new date is going to be. I'm confident it will be postponed. And I can't give you any guarantees, but watch that space. As soon as we know, we'll get it out into the public domain, and so will Thatcher. So thank you. So definitions then, Jerry?
Well, those definitions there are really self-explanatory, and it's really a reference for you. Your ADAS competent person will be fully aware of all this, or they should be.
Yeah.
You know, it's describing the different types of calibration that exist, which are all knowledge that the competent person must have to make the right decision.
If say I'm in a small repair and my boss comes to me and says, Tom, you got to do this competency-based training. It's going to happen next week. And I say, Gov, I don't know anything about ADAS. Why are you putting me on? Will I be able to get through and learn what I need to learn?
You should be able to come out the other side as a competent person, because they do spend a tremendous amount of time giving you the knowledge and the competence, and then there's the online testing, and then you carry out a calibration.
Okay.
You know, so there's no reason why that person cannot come out the other side.
There are training facilities out there that are doing this on site as well, Jerry, I believe.
Yes, there are several organizations who are trying to make it work for everybody by helping. Obviously, when you're trying to get on site training, they rely on having a full classroom.
Yeah.
And so that would probably be 5-6 people minimum to keep the cost effectiveness there.
Okay, that's good. But in any case, anyone going for the competency training will find out about all these ADAS features.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And there's more definitions there, which we've covered: competent person, what they would be requested to do. And I think, is there anything else you want to mention on this one, Jerry?
When you go through that, you'll see the manufacturers are mentioned there. Well, obviously, if you are an approved repairer, such as Volkswagen Audi Group, and you've gone to a Volkswagen Audi ADAS training, they will have carried it out with assessed outcome, and that should be accepted.
So if you take it to your local dealer, then that is deemed as compliant.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So this is the process created via the group for the IIR, and you will be able to see this after the webinar. We've created a simpler process for NBRA members, and this will be available. Do you want to walk us through this one, Jerry?
Yes. You'll see that what we've tried to create is a reference guide sheet for you to give you a consistent process. So that will be the pre-scan of the systems before or during the estimate, and you would need to note down all of the results of that. That then needs put forward towards your estimate to make sure that you get the right repair methods, making notes all the time, carrying this information forward. You would then need to make sure you updated your body shop system, your management system, and of course your estimate would have been updated as you went along. You would carry this information forward through the repair process, through the rescan and the recalibrations, irrespective of whether that's done by yourself or by the subcontract. And then that would go forward to make sure that everything is updated on the job card, the estimate, and the management system. And then you will be the final proof of calibration would be given where necessary to the work provider or the asset owner.
So just you reading the process out to me seems like quite a lot of effort.
Yes.
Yep. So
the truth of the matter is that if you carry out a scan and there's no ADAS or certain ADAS isn't fitted to the vehicle, it will take you a minimum of, I would suggest, 10 to 15 minutes. And it could take as long as 1 hour, 20 minutes, depending on what type of vehicle it is and how many systems are on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the couple of questions coming through, there's no mention from insurers reference cost on this. So are they going to be compensated for the time and effort to comply to IIR? And at this moment in time, there isn't. So I'm in dialogue with a couple of insurance companies, and they are going to set up some team meetings to look at the costings, the time involved, and there's some possible duplication in doing the scans. But what I'm getting is insurance companies will be looking at compensating you for your time. And I know there's a couple of insurance companies on this webinar today having a look to see what it's all about. And I know that there's a couple of questions, Jerry, reference, are the insurance companies' engineers going to be competently trained? And are they already trained? And what process will they be following?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, the insurance companies are not training their engineers to be competent, but they are giving them ADAS overview.
Right.
so that they understand the systems and what may be or may not be required after an accident. But as far as I'm aware, they are not going to be all competent.
No. Well, I know some of the insurers have already put their staff through competency training, but you're right, it differs from insurer to insurer.
That's right.
And obviously, insurance companies have asked for this to be
Yes.
implemented, and we're doing our very best at the MBRA to raise the awareness of this IIR. So, if you're an insurance company and you're listening, then potentially we may want to do a joint webinar just to get the awareness up from the insurer's angle. Anything else you want to add on that, Jerry?
Yes, I think it's very important to point out through this process that when you do the pre-scan, you should use a diagnostic tool that can scan the ADAS and the fault codes on the vehicle all in one operation. It's rather pointless to use a separate scanner for the fault codes and then expect another scan of the ADAS. Clearly, the insurance companies would not be prepared to pay for 2 scans.
No, they pay for what the repairer does, right?
That's right.
In most cases. So,
Yes.
okay. So it's absolutely, clear to me that you need a VDA to be competently trained to establish whether there's ADAS on the vehicle. You need a technician to carry out the work and the calibration, and you need a robust audit trail to document everything you're doing on the vehicle that relates to ADAS as per the process. A question's come up, Jerry. I'm going to put you on the spot a bit.
Right.
So if you're doing a remote estimate of a vehicle via image, how are you how are you going to know?
Well, clearly, you would need to question the owner or the operator of the vehicle to ask them if they can tell you what specification that vehicle is, what ADAS systems are fitted to it to the best of their knowledge, and then that would have to be verified when the vehicle came in.
Yeah.
I do understand that there will be these exceptional cases where you will do the initial estimate from images, and then you'll have to redo that when the vehicle comes in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So triage, damage assessment and preparation. What should I consider when assessing the vehicle for repair? I think we've covered that off. What should I do before I start a repair? Again, your VDA is absolutely crucial in this process of the repair. He will identify the ADAS, he will do the research, and then you need to have a journey for that vehicle going through your workshop as per the vehicle manufacturer's methods. And most of the repairers subscribe to either methods via MBRA through the technical request, or through Thatcham through their eScribe, or through the vehicle manufacturer's methods directly. I don't see that repairers are going to be able to move forward much longer without having access to methods. Do you, Joe?
Well, it's impossible to repair a modern motor car without repair methods and information.
So if you're out there and you're not actually inclined to go for any method, then you may want to reconsider that.
Yeah, I noticed there's a question came in there expressing incredulity that we're asking customers to have technical knowledge. No, that's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is we're just asking some sensible questions to try to get our initial estimate from images on the right track.
And it'll be verified when the vehicle comes in.
Absolutely.
It will be assessed, diagnosed, and the diagnostic machine will then interrogate the hardware and the software on the vehicle to see what ADAS is on there. And if the journey needs to change for that vehicle going through the workshop, then that's what will happen.
Absolutely. And obviously in those circumstances, the work provider will understand that you have done a remote estimate, and you're liable to be updating that estimate when the vehicle arrives at the premises.
Absolutely. Anything else on this page you want to go through, Jerry?
No, that's okay.
So our last poll. So do you subcontract ADAS recalibrations? And if so, who does the liability rest with? So do you subcontract and you think the liability rests with the subcontractor, or you are liable for any subcontracted work, or you simply don't know? You've never really given it consideration. If you could answer those for us, that'd be much appreciated. And while we're waiting for those there. So Matthew's come up with a question. The insurers push the IIR, but do they recognise the cost involved and how they intend to address this? So I'm discussing this with several insurance companies at the moment. They understand there's extra effort needed from the repair, and they will be, for those insurers I'm discussing it with, are going to consider the charge that would look like. So we've worked with some members, and the charge looks like, you know, it could be 10 minutes to say no, it hasn't got ADAS, but you still have to document it hasn't got ADAS.
That's right.
It cannot just go through the workshop. And then B, you know, if it has got ADAS, it can take up to 120 minutes of work. A, to do the sweep of the vehicle to understand what's on the vehicle. And then your VDA has to sit down, look at the vehicle manufacturer's methods, look at what that information is telling you what to do at the repair stage. So some vehicles, if you change the geometry, it doesn't need a calibration. Other manufacturers will tell you, if you change the toe of that vehicle, it changes the geometry, and you absolutely have to calibrate that vehicle. So the vehicle repair methods are absolutely crucial. So there's the time scale there. So we're in dialogue with some insurance companies about what they think is fair. And as soon as we get that answer, we will come back to our members and discuss that. So liability rests with the subcontractor, 28%. I am liable, 64%, and I don't know at 9%. So Jerry, would you like to answer this one?
Well, clearly, the body shop is responsible for the subcontractor's work, and that's why they must have a good relationship and trust. You can't pass that liability off.
So no matter whether you're sending it out for a geometry, you are responsible. But calibrations and ADAS, you are still responsible for making sure whoever you subcontract to has a competent person dealing with the calibration. And you still need to give that documentation, you need to embed that documentation into your audit path at the body shop. Anything else on that one, Jerry?
No, that's right.
Okay. So the repair planning, again, we go back to the VDA. They're going to plan the actual work on the vehicle, and then, you know, depending what repairer you are, whether you've got a workshop manager or whether you've got someone that controls the workshop, they'll have a job sheet. ADAS needs to be on that job sheet. It needs to be on there to identify whether it has or hasn't. And, you know, moving through my own personal sort of ideas, I would put a big sign in the window saying it's got ADAS and what ADAS it's got. So when it moves through the workshop, you know exactly which vehicles are going to have to comply with the IIR. What are your thoughts, Jerry?
Well, it is absolutely critical that we do have a process in place, and that people treat it very seriously. When you cast your mind back to about 2002, when ultra high strength steel became a very common problem, it took too many years for our industry to get on board with that problem.
Yeah.
That problem went on far, far, far too long. They don't have years to get a grip of this problem. They need to get a grip of this problem within months.
And I think, you know, several months, we've bring the awareness to our members at the moment and some non-members, and we'll continue to do that.
Yes.
So, yeah, absolutely. I know we're going to be running out of time. So calibration, who should do the calibration, Jerry?
Well, the calibration has got to be done by a competent person. and you must record all the details. Now you'll see from the list of the details there, a lot of that information you will already have in your systems and on your estimates, and there are just a few additions there. The main additions are the date of calibration, the competent person's proof of competence, and the equipment used, and the creation of the audit trail.
Okay.
But apart from that, all the other information you should be collecting in any case.
Okay, and don't forget, all this information will be available after the webinar. So, industry considerations, what do I need to do to comply with the IIR? Well, hopefully through the webinar, you've got a really good taste of what you need to do to comply with the IIR. If there are any questions after the webinar, then please contact the MBRA and we'll be happy to answer those. Is there anything else you wanted to add on this one, Jerry?
No.
So we're on to the Q&A, and there's 23 questions that are already in the system. So I will go through these and answer them with Jerry as quickly as I can. You don't think IIRs, this is Mike, so thank you, Mike, has been communicated to the engineering teams, even on those insurers who have backed this. It needs to happen, and who is responsible for doing this? Well, it'd be the insurance companies that are responsible, probably the head of engineering. I know of some insurance companies that are absolutely doing this. Jerry is aware of some that are just giving the awareness, which I feel, and it's my own personal belief, is unfair. If the repair is expected to go through the competency training, I would expect the insurers to put some engineers through it as well, so that they can have that dialogue one-to-one with the repair on the same basis.
Yes.
So Devin, with the country being ravaged by COVID, many repairers are utilising out of target and not physically seeing the vehicle before it hits the site. What are your thoughts? So Jerry, you've already tried to answer this one, but I think it's one we need to take away and give it a little bit more thought. We've got several suppliers that work with that side of things, with imagery and estimating. And I know that we've been waiting for the vehicle registration lookup to tell you exactly what's on the vehicle, but we're still waiting for that accuracy. So that one there, I will take away, and I'll respond in more detail. Andy Latham, GKA is live and available through Auto Assess. Yeah, so January, February, it came live, I believe, this year, so it's open, and that will be added to our list of trainees. Colin Granton, will the insurance companies send their staff on a competency course? I'm hoping so, Colin. And as I've said, some insurers have, and some insurance companies are thinking about it. So we'll update you on that. Pete Sadler, is the training the same for the VDAs as well as the technicians? Yes, absolutely. Is that your take on that, Jerry?
Yes, the training's the same. We fully appreciate that the average VDA will only calibrate a vehicle when he's been trained.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. Mike, again, there's no mention of costs in the document. Why has this not been established? The IIR was established for the safety. Yeah, so it's guidance, and the insurers wanted to know the vehicles are going to be done safely. Under no scoping has commercials come into this. It's all about safety. Hence why we're lobbying now to see what is fair and reasonable to charge for the IIR process. And it is a process, and it's extra effort for the repairers. We know this, and we will come back to you on that. So, Mike, again, generally insurers have a total lack of knowledge training, all things ADAS within the engineering management. I think that Mike, I would agree, some insurance companies are lacking on that, but some insurance companies, they've gone to the nth to try and get their engineers to absorb the information, and it's got to be to a competent level now that engineers need to be on the same basis as repairers, I believe. Gareth, will independent windscreen repairers also have to comply? Yes, if you are repairing a vehicle for an insurance company, you have to comply with the IIR. Is that your belief, Jerry?
That's correct.
Right, Jerry, one for you. Colin Granton, no single diagnostic machine will interrogate all ADAS modules. Sometimes 2 or even 3 are needed.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, this is an ongoing problem and has been for many years. It's difficult. It's a difficult area. There are always areas where different diagnostic tools fall down or fall short. It is a very, very difficult choice. All I can say is that the ADAS diagnostic tools are probably some of the most comprehensive. You know, but there always will be those little grey areas that are so annoying.
I think, Colin, on that one, we've gone back to the ADAS manufacturers of aftermarket equipment for calibration, and we've got specifics on what they cover for vehicle manufacturers, whether it be Audi, Honda, Toyota, and then a percentage on what codes they will actually interrogate. So we probably will need to do a little bit more work on that, Jerry, but we'll come back to you on that, Colin, if that's all right.
Could you just excuse me just for a moment, please?
Yeah. So, Brian Thomas, Will Insurance, where have you gone? There you go. Will insurance companies still authorize Fred in the shed to carry out repairs without evidence of methods and IIR competence? That's for the insurance companies, Brian. If they've gone to all the effort of creating an IIR, they need to implement it. Colin, qualified competent person, we've already done that. Devin, which brand of scanner do you recommend? Auditex, VHC. There's various scanners out there, Devin, depending on what your requirements are. And I think, you know, each calibration solution brings a different solution. That makes sense. So whether it's Texa, whether it's Auditex, whether it's Hella Gutman, they all cover slightly different. So it depends on what vehicles you've got coming into your shop. You then need to research what coverage they do. So Matthew Cooper, if we subcontract ADAS calibrations, do we still need a competent person on staff? Yes. The subcontractor is IMI qualified and methods allow the VDA to ID the sensors possibly fitted. I would have your VDA competently trained. Otherwise, who's doing the audit trail and you've got no gaps in the woodwork? And when your VDA then talks to the internal engineer, he's far superior in knowledge if the other person hasn't got that competency-based training. Mike, have we got an issue with insurers brewing? They do not wish to pay for valid resets calibrations. How do you feel? How do we deal with this? Give me specifics, Mike. I'm quite happy to take that challenge on, but I will need specifics on what that question's all about. Matthew, the insurers have pushed the IIR, but do they recognise the cost involved? We've covered that, and we will come back with the cost. Pete, currently I don't believe management systems have the facility to store ADAS anywhere other than comments or notes or fields. Pete, you're right. What I've done in a previous life and what colleagues have done is taken screenshots of the documents or turned them into Adobe documents and then put them up onto Auditex or another estimating platform within images. It's fully visible to you, it's fully visible to the engineers that are scrutinizing the estimate, and that's the solution I would suggest moving forward. John, manufacturer training qualifications need to be added to the listing surely to comply with the audit process undertaken by BS 10125. Getting copies of qualification evidence trends to be difficult from these sources to establish subcontractor audit files. If you are sending your work to a vehicle manufacturer, they have put their staff on competency-based training, and I'm in discussion with BSI at the moment. Reference, if you've got an invoice saying that your Audi has been recalibrated by your Audi dealership, that invoice stipulating that it's a successful calibration will suffice. And I'm quite happy to take other questions on that. Matthew, so the insurance companies have rushed out the IIR without any consideration of costs. That is correct. You say that accredited manufacturer training such as senior MET, VW should qualify as a competent person. Could you confirm, Jerry?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
Yeah, you say that accredited manufacturer training such as a senior MET, VW should qualify as a competent person. Could you confirm?
They must have specific ADAS training, even with the manufacturer.
But so long as it's got an assessed outcome,
Yes, if it's an assessed outcome and they've gone through the ADAS module with the manufacturer, that will be acceptable.
okay, thank you. Mike, it states the IIR is the insurer will ask PH what specs are on their vehicle. I think, well, Jerry, I think you've answered that one. No, you haven't, on their vehicle. I think this clearly doesn't either happen or is not communicated to repairs. I don't think they ask what technology is on their vehicle to any specification. I surely wouldn't hold that in any weight if they did. I would still want to see the vehicle and scrutinize the vehicle. Matthew, the MBRI are involved in the IIR, so why have you allowed the IIR to be published without the cost consideration being addressed? Because it was crucial that the IIR was implemented for the safety of the vehicles, the customers, and at that time, cost just wasn't on the radar for that to happen. We are now talking to insurance reference to cost. Pete, I'm not sure the question of ADAS exists is irrelevant as the question of A, agreeing when it's required to pay for a reset.
I don't quite understand that question.
You have to come back to me with a clearer question on that one, Pete. Andy Lathan, you have not mentioned anything about the repair and painting of any components that cover ADAS sensors, for example, bumper covers that. Well, the method should cover that off, Andy. So any vicinity of a repair where you know there's ADAS behind it, you need to scrutinize the methods for sure. And if the methods don't stipulate, then you have to ask the method provider or the vehicle manufacturer. You have to get certainty. So if I had a vehicle and the quarter panel was damaged and there was a bliss sensor on the bottom part of the quarter panel, which was slightly indentated, I would look at the vehicle manufacturers for knowledge of whether I need to calibrate. But in my own mind, if I think that sensor has moved, I'm going to be calibrating that vehicle to be absolutely sure. Manufacturers seem to be saying that vehicles should have ADAS calibration following any accident incident. Why are we not doing this? No, that's not what the vehicle manufacturers are saying in every single case. That's why we're advising for you to consult with the vehicle manufacturer's methods. Nicholas, should manufacturers in the digital age make vehicle specs available by VIN number, considering their cars can end up various outlets of repair? Yes, I do, but they haven't yet. Simon, how did the main dealers get away with not giving a calibration certificate even after ADAS calibration? The insurance companies accept their invoice as proof, but have no certificate to back they've actually calibrated the systems. If we don't provide a certificate, we don't get paid out. It doesn't seem to be a level playing field. So some of the vehicle manufacturers, recalibration equipment won't give a certificate, but it tells you various parts of the architecture, whether it's working correctly, and that suffices for the vehicle manufacturer. Hence why we've said if the vehicle manufacturer will give you an invoice stating they have calibrated that vehicle successfully, that will suffice. Should all MET technicians have training and qualifications? That's the repairer's choice, whether they want to get more competent persons on the ground or whether they want one or two to cover the calibrations in holiday. That's an individual choice. Should all MET technicians? Yep. Michael Reed, is ADAS going to be part of an MOT? Prove that it's worked before a collision. Jerry?
No, it will not be part of the MOT for the foreseeable future. That's because most of the ADAS systems do not have a default position that is recognizable. In other words, when they go off, when a particular ADAS system goes off, there's no specific warning that it has failed.
Okay,
you can switch certain aspects on and off, but you cannot get a warning light. Therefore, they can't put it in the MOT.
Okay. Matthew, it sounds like another requirement document that has been written in the ivory tower. No one diagnostic machine can read all vehicles. Surely the MBRA should have ensured that it's possible to fully comply with the requirement before it was published. I know aftermarket equipment will be read, a brand new vehicle, for example, and that's why you would have to subcontract that vehicle, Matthew. So we have stood behind this IIR, and ivory tower, whether you think that's correct or no, it's a realistic guidance for you to follow to be compliant for the safe repair of vehicles. And if not every machine will calibrate a vehicle. That's why you may, in certain instances, have to take that vehicle back to the vehicle manufacturer for that calibration to take place. Anything to add on that, Jerry?
That's unfortunately always been the case with electronics and diagnosis. It's very, very difficult to get a machine that will cover every individual vehicle.
Okay, thank you. Last question. How long does the qualification last for, Jerry?
3 years.
There you go. Okay, we've gone through those questions at pace. If you have any other questions, please come back to us at the MBRA. We'll be happy to either answer the questions or go away and find the answers. We hope this webinar has been useful to you. I thank you, Jerry, for helping out on this webinar today and putting a lot of it together. And thank you, Shelley, and thank you all for your participation. We started with over 80 participants. We've still got 70 in, so thank you for your patience. Have a good rest of the day, and we look forward to the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.